Hey, Daily Dosers, this is Pastor Larry here, and I'm tying up this week in which we've been looking at this thing called fear under the title Walking in the Valley. And I want to share with you a couple of thoughts from Psalm 56, verse 3 in particular. And Psalm 56 is a psalm of David when he had been captured by the Philistines at Gath. So this was not a time where he was fearing something out there that might happen and extrapolating thoughts that he shouldn't, dealing with shadows that don't exist. He'd actually been captured. The thing that he was fearful of had actually happened. And of course, at that point, our fear even bubbles up all the more. And here's what he says: when I am afraid, which I am right now, I put my trust in you. In God, whose word I praise, in God I trust and am not afraid. What can mere mortals do to me? And I find in this passage, he has really the solution for those times of fear where it's not we're afraid of what might happen, but actually the things we fear have happened to us. And the first thing I want you to note in this is he says, when I am afraid. He doesn't say, I put my trust in you, Lord, so therefore I am never afraid. No, fear is an emotion, and fear sometimes is the right emotion that we ought to have in light of something. But he says, I don't let it control me. I balance it out with my trust in you. Now, I think many of you know that biblically the concept of faith and trust are exactly the same thing. And what we've got here is the antidote for fear, even when the fear is absolutely legitimate. You beat fear, you overcome fear with trust or faith. Now, part of the problem is we've often misunderstood what faith is. As I've talked about in some sermons in the past, we think that faith sometimes is a mental gymnastics where I only see the positive outcome. That faith is believing things that I know simply aren't true. That faith is taking risk and all of these goofy definitions, where the biblical concept of faith is really quite simple. Trusting God enough to do what he says. Trusting God enough to do what he says, even if we don't know how the outcome will be. Trusting God enough to do what he says, even if the short-term outcome is not what we want. Trusting God enough to do what he says no matter what. And therein is found the victory to overcoming fear. The emotion might still be there, but as long as the actions, because you can't control your emotions, they just are. But as long as the actions of obedience are there, fear loses its stranglehold. Because spiritually, fear is only powerful when it becomes so great it causes me to take a spiritual shortcut, to make a compromise, or take things into my own hands and do them my way instead of God's way. You see, that's the dark side of fear. That's the fear the enemy wants to put into your heart and into my heart. A fear that says God is too busy or God can't handle this, so I need to handle it. And the solution is always the same. When I am afraid, I will put my faith, my trust in you, and I will trust you enough to do what you say, no matter what the outcome might be in the short run. And therein is the way to walk through the valley and come out on the other side.